I started baking blueberry pies about 3 years ago, and my first blueberry pie crust was made out of roasted almonds, which was simply delish. Yes, I can show you how in another video, but I made this video mainly for those of us who may be allergic to tree nuts, and so I thought this is the next best thing, considering the fact that fermentation helps break down the sugars in the flour and makes it more easily digestible. On top of that, there will be more blueberries in pie crust, so it'll still be low carb, legit. But talking about blueberries, besides the fact that blueberries can help step on the brakes on aging and cancer, they are superfoods that can also help reduce muscle damage after strenuous exercise, help maintain blood and brain function, improve memory, and even fight infections. But before I rattle on too much, here we go. Measure out 150 grams of whole grain spelt flour, add a quarter teaspoon of pink salt, then add 15 grams of sugar. 3/4 teaspoon of dried herb of choice. Here I'm using thyme. I'm sure you know by now how much I love thyme. A lot. And it just smells so delicious, you know what I mean? Anyway, whisk them all up and set it aside. Moving on now to the not so dry ingredients. Grate 100 grams of frozen butter into the dry mix and toss to coat. Work quickly, but keep at it until you get pea-sized crumbles. After this, measure out 60 grams of ice cold water. Then in a separate bowl, dish out 25 grams of sourdough starter. And to it, add 40 grams of ice cold water. Whisk until you get a slurry. Pour slurry to the pea-sized crumbles. Use the paddle attachment to mix until fully combined. Saran wrap the ball of dough and fridge it for at least 1 hour or overnight for maximum fermentation. I left mine in the fridge for about 3 days and it was still good. When you are ready to par bake or blind bake the pie crust, preheat the oven to 200 degrees Celsius, but keep an eye on the internal oven temperature, and once it hits 190, dial it down and keep it there whilst you work on the pie crust or tart shell. Remove the dough from the fridge, sandwich it between some baking paper so it won't stick to your rolling pin while you flatten the dough. To increase the flakiness of the pie crust, fold the dough like an envelope, left over right, top over bottom, and you can do this a couple of times if you like, and then rotate the dough as you roll it out into a large circle. Here I'm using a rolling pin with a 6mm guide on both ends to roll the dough out evenly because I want to be able to taste the pastry. But if you prefer a slightly thinner crust, you could go for 4mm. In any case, remember to oil the pie pan with extra virgin olive oil or butter it before transferring or draping the dough onto the pie pan. Gently press the dough so it fills the sides, and then just before baking it, pierce the base of the pie crust with a fork like so. Then place a clean sheet of baking paper on top and then pour the ceramic baking beans over it to weigh it down so the dough doesn't pull away too much from the pie pan during baking, and this also helps it to keep its shape. Bake the pie crust or tart shell at 190 degrees Celsius for about 25 minutes, but at about 18 minutes into the set time, remove the baking paper along with the baking beans so that the top of the crust can cook and brown evenly. Just keep watch and check on the pie crust from time to time, and if the sides still look a little pale after 25 minutes, let it go on baking until the sides of the pie crust turn golden brown. Remove the pie crust from the oven and leave it aside to cool while you work on the filling. Measure out 7 grams of gelatin powder and to it add 3 tablespoons of water. Leave it aside to bloom. While you set aside 350 grams of fresh blueberries in a clean saucepan. To it add 24 grams of monk fruit sweetener. Stir over medium-low heat until about 80% of the fruit is cooked and turns to mush. Turn off the heat, add the bloom gelatin mix and stir until it dissolves completely in the blueberry jam. After it's cool to the touch, add the blueberry jam to the pie crust or tart shell. Spread evenly, then stick in the blueberries one by one like so. I set aside about 300 grams of blueberries for this, by the way, and you can keep going round and round until you get this. Ta-da! And that's how to make the perfect blueberry pie. I hope you give this homemade sourdough pie crust recipe a go, and if you do make it, remember to hashtag lovelynettetan so that I'll have a chance to admire and ogle at your naturally sweet treat too. Till then, you have a beautiful day.